Welcome back. Today, we are taking some of the most fundamental facts we've all just accepted since childhood and turning them completely upside down. Growing up and having a family brings ultimate happiness. Fighting means a relationship is failing. Stress is your absolute biggest enemy, and mindfulness is the cure. Oh, and that self-control is just something you're born with? Well, what if the science actually says the exact opposite? In this explainer, we're going to break the data down for you so simply that a child could understand it.
Here is our roadmap for today. First, do kids equal happiness? Second, when caring causes conflict. Third, the truth about stress. Fourth, the marshmallow test mix-up. And finally, rethinking what we know. Let's jump right in.
All right, let's start with myth 1. Do kids equal happiness?
So, does having kids actually make you happier? It's kind of like asking a kid if ice cream makes them happy, right? We just naturally assume the answer is a resounding yes. But what happens when we strip away the fairy tales and look directly at what the long-term studies tell us about parents versus non-parents?
Well, the common belief is that children bring absolute joy. But the study reality? It turns out childless people are considerably happier. There was this massive study spanning 22 different OECD countries, and researchers found that even when governments pay for time off and childcare to help parents, it only shrinks the happiness gap a tiny bit. It doesn't close it. The data is super clear here. Across our whole lives, people without children report being noticeably happier than those with them.
Now, you might be wondering, okay, but what about when the kids grow up and leave? We've all heard of empty nest syndrome, the idea that parents are just heartbroken when the kids finally move out. Actually, scratch that. Researcher Nicholas Wolfinger looked at over 40 years of data and found it's a complete myth. Older parents actually get a measurable, statistically significant 5 to 6% bump in happiness the absolute minute all their kids leave home. Kids at home, happiness is lower. Kids leave, happiness shoots right up.
Moving right along to myth 2, when caring causes conflict.
Think about this for a second. Does fighting mean a relationship is failing? If a couple is completely peaceful and never ever argues, is that a sign of ultimate love? Or is fighting actually a thermometer, like a raw measure of emotional investment?
We usually assume fighting means a lack of love. But according to a 2003 study by Hammock, which is backed up by major textbooks on human sexuality, high levels of love and trust actually predict intense arguing and conflict. I know it sounds totally backward, but researchers found that deep emotional commitment is actually a massive predictor for aggressive arguments. To break this down so it's incredibly easy to understand, imagine a kid with a toy they don't really care about. If someone takes it, they just shrug and walk away. But if it's their absolute favorite toy in the whole world, they will fight tooth and nail for it. It's the exact same in adult relationships. Because deeply invested people value the relationship so highly, they're unfortunately sometimes way more motivated to try and control their partner or retaliate when they feel threatened. It's actually the deep emotional investment fueling that intense conflict.
All right, on to myth 3, the truth about stress.
We hear this narrative literally every single day. Is stress always the ultimate villain? And is mindfulness really a flawless, harmless cure-all for everyone? The story we're constantly fed is that stress is the enemy and meditation is harmless. But when you look at the data, the results are pretty shocking. Stress actually has serious evolutionary benefits, and meditation carries real risks. Now, while extreme, non-stop stress is definitely linked to major illnesses, our everyday stress responses exist for incredibly good reasons. Stress is literally what gives you the surge of energy and focus to run away from a bear. It's a natural, completely necessary survival mechanism. Leading psychiatrist Dr. Alan Francis notes that we are currently confusing depression and anxiety with normal, short-lived feelings of sadness and stress. Basically, we're lumping the totally normal sadness of just being a human being together with major depressive disorders. To put that into perspective, today about 11% of Americans are taking antidepressants, often because we're over-treating the normal bumps and bruises of everyday life. So, if we shouldn't automatically medicate normal stress, meditation has to be the answer, right? Well, a massive review combed through the studies and found a pretty wild statistic. Roughly 1 in 12 people, that's 8% of people who try meditation, experience serious, unwanted negative side effects. And researchers say this is likely a huge underestimate, just because so many studies refuse to even record the bad experiences.
And we're not just talking about getting a little bored here. We're talking about worsening anxiety, panic attacks, psychotic breakdowns, and severe depression. Why does this happen? Psychologists explain it super simply as a backlash. When you take an active, anxious mind and forcefully try to hold it completely still, the mind can rebel. It essentially throws a tantrum. Meditation just isn't a universally magic pill, and for a significant chunk of people, it can actually make things much worse. Which brings us to myth 4, the marshmallow test mix-up. If you aren't familiar with this granddaddy of all 1970s psychology experiments, the methodology was super simple. Step 1, put a preschooler in a room with a marshmallow. Step 2, tell them if they wait alone without eating it for a few minutes, they'll get a reward. Step 3, if they waited, they get 2 marshmallows. For decades, textbooks swore that the kids who could wait were naturally hardwired for better health, better wealth, and higher success in life.
But is that actually true? Is the ability to delay gratification just brain chemistry? Are you just born with a waiter brain or a grabber brain completely dictated by your genetics?
Common Belief says self-control is innate genetics, but a brand new 2022 cross-cultural study completely flips this on its head. The reality? Self-control is heavily shaped by cultural habits. It's really all about the social routines and the peer pressure supported by the society that child grows up in.
This data is absolutely fascinating. Researchers tested kids in Kyoto, Japan, and kids in Boulder, Colorado. The Japanese kids waited an incredible 15 minutes for food without eating it, but they couldn't even wait 5 minutes to rip into wrapped gifts. Meanwhile, the American kids did the exact opposite. They inhaled the food in under 4 minutes, but politely waited 15 minutes to open gifts. Why? Because in Japan, the cultural habit is to wait for everyone to sit down before you eat, but gifts are open right away. In America, you wait for a special moment to open presents, but snacking quickly is totally normal.
As researcher Yuko Munakata points out, cultivating habits of waiting for others is doing way more than just supporting politeness. It's actually wiring your brain's ability to be patient. Your willpower isn't just born inside your DNA. It's molded by the expectations of the society you grow up in. If your culture teaches you to wait, you get good at waiting. It's a learned habit, not a genetic trait.
And finally, Section 5, Rethinking What We Know.
Let's do a quick recap of what we've learned. 1. Having kids does not guarantee happiness. 2. Deep emotional caring can actually trigger intense conflict because we fight for what we value. 3. Normal stress isn't always the enemy, and forcing the mind to meditate can actually cause a harsh backlash. And 4. Self-control isn't just raw genetics, it's a learned cultural habit.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If our assumptions about family, love, mental health, and self-control were this completely backward, what other truths in your life are just cultural habits waiting to be challenged? Keep looking at the data, keep questioning the expected narrative, and never stop learning. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.